What's up, biologists? Today we are going to be talking about photosynthesis. I'm sure we all know what photosynthesis is, but we're going to be discussing the process in more detail and breaking it down even further. Before we get started, we know that photosynthesis is a process by which plants capture light energy and use it to convert water, carbon dioxide, and minerals into oxygen and energy-rich organic compounds. The first thing we're going to learn are the two stages of photosynthesis. This includes the light-dependent reactions being the first stage and the Calvin cycle being the second stage. During the light-dependent reactions, light energy is basically captured by pigment molecules and used to synthesize NADPH as well as ATP. During light-dependent reactions, a water molecule is split while an electron transport chain transfers electrons with high energy to NADPH carrier molecules. This makes sure that there is a protein gradient across the membrane. When the water molecule splits, this causes oxygen to release to the environment, and the energy that is stored in the proton gradient creates ATP. In the Calvin cycle, which is the second stage, a process called carbon dioxide fixation occurs. This is where the electrons with high energy that are carried by the NADPH and extra ATP are used to convert carbon dioxide into high energy organic compounds. In simpler terms, the Calvin cycle is where ATP and NADPH convert carbon dioxide to sugars. Next, we are going to be talking about chloroplasts and how they're important when talking about both the light-dependent reactions and the Calvin cycle. A chloroplast is an organelle formed from three membranes that conduct photosynthesis by absorbing the sun, and both of these stages take place within the chloroplast. The third membrane of the chloroplast is called the thylakoid membranes, and this is where light-dependent reactions occur. Fun fact, the thylakoid membrane is what gives leaves their green color because of the chlorophyll and other pigments that are embedded within it. Looking at this diagram, we can see that in a small section of a leaf, there is a photosynthetic cell with green chloroplasts, and inside each of these chloroplasts, there are thylakoid membranes. This diagram also shows us where the light reaction occurs in the thylakoid membranes and how it ties in with the Calvin cycle. Now we are going to be talking about capturing light energy. There are 2 points for light absorption that are important in photosynthesis. First, we must note that the absorption of a photon by a pigment molecule excites a single electron, moving it from a low energy level to a high energy level. Second, the difference between the level of the low energy and the high energy states must be the same amount of energy of the photon light that was absorbed. If they are not equivalent, the photon cannot be absorbed by the pigment. In light absorption, there are 3 different outcomes that can occur for the excited or high energy electrons within a pigment molecule. As we can see in the diagram, outcome A is when the electron returns to its ground state by emitting a less energetic photon or by releasing energy as thermal energy. Outcome B is when the electron returns to its ground state and the energy released is transferred to a different electron in a close-by pigment molecule. Finally, outcome C is when the high energy electron is accepted by an electron accepting molecule, which is known as a primary acceptor. By the way, a primary acceptor is a molecule that is able to accept electrons and become reduced during photosynthesis. Next, we are going to be talking about how chlorophylls and carotenoids cooperate in light absorption. We are going to learn about the 2 types of chlorophylls and then the second major group of photosynthetic pigments, which are the carotenoids. Chlorophylls and carotenoids are the 2 major groups of photosynthetic pigments. Chlorophylls A and B are only different by the side group that they are attached to at the X, which is shown on the diagram. In the shaded orange lines, light-absorbing electrons are distributed. In carotenoids, the electrons that absorbs light are distributed in a series of alternating double and single bonds in the backbone of the pigment. Now we must learn 2 key terms, which are the antenna complex and the reaction center. The antenna complex is a cluster of light-absorbing pigments embedded in the thylakoid membrane, and they're able to capture and transfer energy to a special chlorophyll A molecule in the reaction center. Next, the reaction center is a complex of proteins and pigments that contains the primary electron acceptor. During photosynthesis, chlorophyll A becomes oxidized and donates an electron to a primary electron acceptor. Carotenoids and chlorophyll B transfer this excitation energy to molecules of chlorophyll A, and they are referred to as accessory pigments because they do this after the light absorption. This set of accessory pigments is called the antenna complex, as we previously mentioned, and this antenna complex captures light energy and transfers it to chlorophyll A molecules. The antenna complex also transfers light energy to the primary electron acceptor in the reaction center at the same time. Based on the diagram shown, we can see the antenna complex capturing light energy and transferring it to the reaction center. The final thing we're going to learn about are photosystems, and these basically hold pigment proteins. There are 2 types of photosystems, and they are both composed of large antenna complex. The first one is photosystem 1, which include chlorophyll A and absorb light at a 700 nanometer wavelength. The second one is photosystem 2, which also has chlorophyll A but absorbs light at a 680 nanometer wavelength. That is all for this video, biologists. I hope you learned a lot about photosynthesis.